I don't see any others in the waiting room. Do you? Well,
Nope.
Mike King tried to join at 6:10 tonight. I'm not quite sure what that was about. Hopefully he'll come back.
Yeah, it's a bit early, but
Here he is. Welcome, Kinger.
What's up?
Glad you're here. Will's just waiting for a couple more people to join, and then he'll kick us off here.
I'll give him a couple more minutes.
Yep.
I was late to a couple meetings today, so I'll extend that grace out a moment or two. Mike, where are you joining us from?
Santa Rosa.
Oh, very nice. How are the storms up there? Did you get a bunch of rain?
Oh, we're wet. We're wet. Not as wet as like Middle Marin, but pretty wet. Pretty wet.
Yeah. Here in Sacramento, we didn't get it too bad, but
You didn't? Oh, that's good.
yeah, I mean, it's bad for Sacramento. We get a fair amount of rain, and
Oh no, you guys do, yeah. Maybe not this storm though.
you know. Well, I see Bryant has joined us, and I think with that, maybe that'll be our sign that we can go ahead and get going. So, just want to start off by welcoming everyone to our third installment, When Things Go Red. For those who I have not met or maybe who are watching on the recording, my name is Will Nelson, and I'm a referee here in Northern California. And I'll turn it over to David to quickly introduce himself.
David Hosley, referee coach in Northern California, and we are recording on a monthly basis now. These half-hour talks. There's time at the end of these for questions and answers too. So feel free to chime in as we go along too. We've got a lot of good experience on this Zoom.
Sweet. So with that, tonight, I think topic of conversation is when things go red. So all things cards, what happens when a red card happens, how do we report cards, how do we communicate cards? So we'll be talking a bit about that tonight. So I will just hand it back over to David and ask David, what even is foul play? Why do we even need these cards?
Well, I think that as rugby developed as a sport, there were times in which people behaved in ways on the pitch that really did not meet the spirit of rugby. And so I think penalties probably became a pretty early part. I'm reading now The History of Rugby, a book that starts back in the 1800s. And it's interesting to see over time how the folks who are running rugby in different countries around the world developed penalties for foul play. Um, there's a whole section of the laws that are devoted to that. It's law section number 9, and I've put something in the chat. If you want to click on that, that takes you to that page. But basically, there are many ways in which foul play occurs. You could obstruct play. You could do something that's not fair. You can have something where you've gotten a card and then you go and do the same thing. So repeated infringements are a factor. Most of the time, if you have 2 yellow cards, that equals a red card, and you're going to be leaving the match. And then for the standards situations in which we as referees find ourselves in rugby, a tackle, the scrum, the ruck, the maul, there are things that players can do in each of those situations that are dangerous. and they're either going to get a penalty, or they're going to get a yellow card, or they may get a red card for that kind of dangerous play. And then finally, you can get carded for not having good sportsmanship. And so there are times on which on a rugby pitch where people act in a way that it's just simply not in the spirit of rugby, and a referee can give a card for that. And then the last thing, of course, is you are not allowed to abuse the referees. And if you do that, you can get carded for that. So the list is a long one. And if we had a lot of new refs on this Zoom, we might talk a little bit about not getting overwhelmed, that you're going to learn how to handle foul play over time as you get more and more experienced, and that you really don't have to put up with someone who's abusing the referee. So those are some of the things that can get somebody penalized or have a card issued of a yellow, and they're going to go to the sidelines for 10 minutes, or you can get a red card and you could be taken out of the match. And so those are some of the things, well, that come to my mind.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, this list here is pretty thorough in saying what all of the foul play is. There's typically 4 pathways that you can go down to get a card. So starting off for maybe just the easiest, repeated infringement, you can't continually to commit the same penalty. So that's one way you can get a card. A tactical or a cynical, that somehow it's referred to. So think sevens, sticking your hand out, intentionally knocking a ball down. That would be a cynical one. And then there's the different foul play pathways. So as we'll see on the next slide, we're talking about competition in the air. And then the final one is just against spirit of the game, which is where referee abuse goes down. So these are all the foul plays, different types of foul plays kind of broken down. But then there's also the different pathways about how cards can be given. And we'll touch upon that a bit more. So going on, yep. So this is kind of the next slide. So kind of the bit of the carding process. So a player who commits foul play must either be cautioned or shown a yellow card and be sent off. That's what happens when any of that foul play on that previous screen was listed before. And then again, how does a referee decide between those different options? So how do we know the difference between maybe just a caution? So maybe again, just kind of having that bit of that conversation, the bit of the warning with them, versus what makes it a penalty, versus what makes it a yellow card where someone's going to be off for 10 minutes, or what makes it a red card. So,
Yeah, well, I had played for about 10 years before I had to ref my first match when the assigned ref didn't show up, and I was coaching the University of Florida's women's team. And if I didn't take up the whistle, the match wasn't going to happen. And that really helped me as a referee as I continued to ref, because I had seen lots of cards issued. And as a player, I knew what you could and couldn't do. But we do have refs who come in as teenagers and they haven't played that much rugby. And I think sometimes they struggle to think they have to memorize all the different ways in which you can give a card. And my feedback to them is do the things that are really obvious and that have to be called out and penalized or given a card to, and you will get a sense over time of what you need to call. And by the time you ref for a while, it's pretty clear to you that you're going to have to give a card. And then you can decide whether that's going to be a yellow card or a red. And I think the thing that's changed a lot since you started refing, well, is that we now have ways to make judgments on severity. And so the referees are being taught about how to go through and see if there's mitigation that might change what you normally would give when you're giving a card. And I think it's a lot better for refs these days because there's a thought process that even a new ref can go through to decide.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that. I mean, because I think the really big nugget in there for me, especially when I first started refereeing, and even as I ref today, it's kind of let the game come to you. The big moment, the moment you need a card will usually jump out at you. Um, and I think that's just a really good intuition that we should be empowered as referees and empower other referees who are in that situation. And then the other piece too about like, why do I referee? Why do I find this activity fun? It's again, it's a bit of that mental challenge. It's a bit of how can I understand the game? And again, some of these pathways that we'll talk a little bit about, and we'll show a couple clips about, I think are really helpful for me to like understand the game and think about it. So again, you see a big collision. What process can we go through to help distinguish, oh, is that just a big collision? Is it just a rugby incident? Has there been foul play? And then if so, what is the severity of the foul play? So the one process that I think I just want to show, I think three kind of quick clips for, um, it's again, it is for what happens when there's a contest in the air. There's a big, maybe two people are jumping up for the ball, a big collision, big smack, you hear it. What is that? How do we think about that? How do we structure that? And so this is diagram right here comes from the game management guidelines. It specifies what to kind of do in those three different situations. So if the person had a realistic chance for the ball and just maybe mistimed the jump, that's a PK only. Um, if the person went up in the air and was not in a position to contest legally, and then the person trying to catch the ball lands on their side or their back, it is a yellow card. And then if that final person goes up, makes a contest for the air, not a realistic chance, and they land dangerously on their head or neck, that is a red card. So let me stop sharing real quick and let me bring up the YouTube video. This is one, if you're around the Seventh Circuit, you will see all the time because this is something that is played yearly. David, can you see this video before I go?
Uh, yeah, go ahead and start it.
Yep. So, and then here is just the law. So, Law 917, like David mentioned previously, this is where all the foul play is. So, here we go. We'll watch a couple of these.
Is on a nice edge. Well, it's going to go the 10. Plenty of hang time. And who wants it? This is a penalty against Australia. Yeah, you can't jump into that zone, but there's no chance at all. Be a yellow card here. So 7 on 6.
So, just to recap, player is not in a realistic chance to catch the ball. The ball carrier lands safely on his feet. Penalty only. So now we'll go to the next one.
Stacey Walker. Referee says you're off at 10, buddy. She knew she was walking off the sideline.
Oops. Ellie Dawson.
All right. So before we move on to that one, player did not have a chance to contest for the ball, hits the player in the air, and the player then lands on her back or side. So that's how we end up at yellow. And now we'll watch our final clip.
That's spectacular from Australia. It's going to be a yellow card, but a fearless leader.
No realistic.
James Armstrong.
Position to catch the ball, and he's landed very dangerously. It's a red card.
Clooney's Ross, red card. Henry Clooney's Ross goes up, comes down, and
All right. So I will stop there. Go back to our slide. And here we go. And so again, I think the points we really just want to emphasize here is again, foul play. It's an important thing that we as referees are in charge of, to make sure we take responsibility. Uh, as maybe younger refs or more unexperienced refs too, you got to let the game come to you, and then sometimes you have these big moments where you need to then provide input and provide structure in the game to maintain safety. And then it is to know your options and then what comes next. So we have looked at some foul play. We've identified foul play. We've given a great card. What comes next in the process, Mr. Housley?
Well, there's a lot of things that are really similar, no matter whether you're reffing a U12 match or you're reffing a college match or even higher than that. But what you have to do as a referee is you've got to get the number, you've got to get the jersey color, and then you have to get the name of the player. And you have to write down on your card when this occurred and what they did. And if you have the presence of mind to write a couple of phrases about what the offense has been, that can be really helpful later on. And of course, you have to stop play as soon as you're going to penalize somebody or give them a card, yellow or red. And you have to remember that in most cases, you're going to have to start a timer for the return. So that's another reason why you write down the time of foul play. We have matches that we're reffing where you might not even have any touch judges or ARs, all the way up to we have matches where there are video assistant referees. And so I want to talk a little bit about the difference. After you get that basic information and the player is carded and gone to the sidelines, it's very important for you to, after the match, go and verify that information. And I don't want to be cynical about this, but I have had players lie about what their name was. And so you really do need to go and check that with the coach or another team official so that you make sure you get it right. And we have players that have names that may not be easily spelled or said differently. And so you want to make sure that you get somebody's name right. Nothing is worse in this world than not having your name spelled right and pronounced right. And so it's important to get that information down. Now, a yellow card is one thing. You're going to get this information, you're going to record it, but a red card requires some further action on the referee's part. And it's a little bit different between whether you're reffing in a youth match here in Northern California or you're doing a match that's high school varsity up to collegiate and then community games. And so I'm just going to go over how to do that. After the match is over and you verify the information with the team's coach, if you're doing a youth match, you have to send a report if you give a red card to an email address, and that's staff@rugbynorcal.org. And you also want to copy rugbynorcalrefs@gmail.com, and that is Roberto Santiago. And he works with me as one of the ref development officers for youth rugby, and he will want to know about the fact that there was a red given. Another thing that's really important is if you're doing this at a tournament. So if you're at a youth tournament and you have a player get 2 yellows, that equals a red card, and you're going to be out for the rest of the tournament. And you have to make that clear not only to the player, but you've got to make it clear to the coach. And what I do when I'm helping out with the youth tournaments is I involve the tournament director and make sure the tournament director also knows that we have a player and they're not going to be able to play play anymore in that tournament. There's also a process that if a coach has a question about officiating, there's now a Rugby NorCal post-match committee and that committee has several referees on it. And so you could go and send in a clip or in some other way ask for information about that committee. We had actually had it happen this summer. No, it was in the fall girls high school tourneys, and there were two cards given in the same match for high tackles, and the coach didn't think they were high tackles, and the process worked great. Clip was sent in. The committee took a look at it, came back and cited the law, and looked at the clip and found that the referee had in fact called it correctly. And we then took advantage of that for the next couple of tournaments. Before the matches started, we talked with both the referees, but also the coaches, and we explained to them that we were going to enforce the standard that was now in effect, which is the sternum for a high tackle in youth rugby. And for matches that are at the boys varsity or college or community matches, you still need to get the player's number and the jersey color and the name and time of the foul play and the score at that time, along with what the offense was. And if you can write a sentence or two beyond that, that'll come in handy if you have to write a report. After the match is over, again, verify that information with the player's team coach. And then if you give red, you have to send in a report with that information and any other background. And also, if video is available, send the clip or tell them where they can get the clip. And it has to be turned in within 48 hours of the match. And that goes to Giles Wilson at gmail.com. He's the chair of the NCRRS board. And he, in turn, will share that information with the appropriate union. Actually, I think it's 24 hours after the match. So in one case, it would be the next day. For youth rugby, it would be Monday. And that's really because youth rugby, their office is closed on Sundays. So, Will, that's the process that goes with giving a red card. And I would say also for the little kids, we tend not to give reds. We'll probably give them a yellow, send them to the sidelines, and I ask them to talk to their coach about what went wrong and have them get a little bit of coaching up so it doesn't happen again in that match.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit now about the matches that have maybe a little bit more help and a little more formalized process.
Yeah. So I think just for the levels above that, so we're talking D1A, Women's Elite Rugby, MLR, and World Rugby. I think what's important to stress is it's the same facts. So what that process looks like is that the responsible officials will need that same information. So again, they'll need the player name, the player number, the kind of circumstances, so time and match. They'll go a little bit more in detail about how close you were to the incident. And then I think maybe the biggest difference will be a more built out process of the law. So what did you see and why did you go? And again, that's where these pathways are really, really important. So for folks looking to move up to do higher level games and maybe games just a bit more complex, you'll need to know for a collision in the air, why was that collision in the air particularly bad? For the D1A, it is 24 hours to report your cards. For MLR and World Rugby, it's 2 hours to report your cards. So you'll do a game, you think you do great, you're trying to head to the showers, maybe grab a beverage, and there's someone there with an iPad saying, no, you make sure you do this before you see anyone else or do anything else. And that's again, because when professional leagues, people's livelihoods are on the line. And so if you get a red card, you're likely not playing. And there's a whole judicial process, which we can talk about maybe later in the Q&A. The last thing is that if you find yourself on a D1A, MLR, or World Rugby match and you are one of the sideline officials, the number one thing that a center referee or ARs will really appreciate is helping them with their cards. Because again, it can be a bit tense, it can be a bit much to try to get that information. And if you kind of just have it written down or typed out where the referee can just kind of copy and paste, you'll make a lot of friends. And it's a good way to build camaraderie. And it's also, I think, a really good way to think about the game too, to see how close you were to uh, writing report or to getting the facts to what the main referee said.
Well, previously we talked about using radios to officiate matches. And so if you are reffing with ARs, that can be a great help. And one thing that's changed is we now have online certification of ARs. And we're going to be working very hard to have more certified ARs in Northern California, which means that you can actually use them. If you just have somebody running touch, if it's a community member, somebody's parent, hopefully you don't hand flags to an assistant coach because they always want to coach and not run touch. But now we're going to be able to call on people who are certified for help. And some of that help can be around what you saw when there was something that may be foul play. And it's online. And so that certification should really help us have more ARs that we can go and consult. And it's kind of what Will was talking about. The center ref will come over and say to the assistant referee, what did you see? This is what I had. And if you saw the same thing that they have, you can confirm that. If you saw something different, you can tell them what you saw, and they can take that into consideration before the center ref will make the decision on what kind of card to award. You also, Will, are getting video help with calls. And I was watching the New Zealand Ireland match in Chicago, and they had a situation very early in the match where somebody went to the side. And what's going on now with rugby at those higher levels is they're taking an initial call on what card is being given, and then they're deciding with video if they're going to upgrade. And it turned out that fellow who was sent to the sidelines ended up getting disqualified for the match as well after they took 10 minutes or so to review it. So it was quite interesting to see.
It wasn't me, David. I was on the sideline. I was the fourth official, but I was not the one who unplugged the video score bug and put in the wrong chord. Um, but yes, that is a global trial law that is being implemented at the professional levels of rugby. Again, the theory is it can be very difficult to tell the difference between a yellow and a red. And so anything that's at least a yellow, you give the X, you give the yellow card, and you let the foul play review officer, who is a specifically a television match official only, to let him or her make that decision where they have enough time and ability to do that. And sometimes it hopefully is better and more efficient, and hopefully when you go to a rugby game, they know which feed to plug into the big video board so everyone can see. But that is, yes, that is what is now at the highest levels.
Also in the chat is a link to another very controversial carding. Before we take your questions and comments, I would just like to say my experience over time is that how things go when you're issuing cards has a lot to do with how you as a referee approach it. And I try to be very neutral about that. I've seen refs give cards and they're angry about what happened. And that really doesn't play very well in the long run. We have laws in rugby. We expect that players are going to follow those. And when they don't, there's consequences for that. But I really try to, particularly when I'm working with younger players, let them know that life is going to go on. This isn't the end of the world. They're not going to be able to participate either for 10 minutes or may not be able to participate in that match anymore. But it's very businesslike on my part. And I think that your demeanor that you take into giving cards will say a lot about how they are taken and how they protect rugby from injuries and other things. And they put standards into play. But most of the time, when people get carded, they didn't have malevolence in their heart when they did it. There is something strange about when a boy gets to be 16. I noticed that those varsity boys matches are where you start giving out a lot of cards. But um, I think it is important for all of us to have a positive attitude about that part of refereeing. So, Will, do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, and I think before I take questions, just at the high performance level and the kind of national panel level of refereeing, we always talk about what level of communication do you need? What's your tone? And going from one, it's the most kind of informal, more relaxed, to your level three, which is your business, your firm, you're laying down the law. And communication is definitely one of the things that I've been trying to work on a lot. And again, another skill that I think we can practice and work on and develop is our communication and practicing how we're going to inform people that they're being carded, and even communication that can prevent that. So, not to get too deep into that, but I hear a lot of time of like, oh, I want to referee, but the only way you can referee is to be out in the middle doing it. But there are exercises like this that I think are really helpful to make sure you know what you're going to say before you say it. Um, so with that, I will stop sharing and to see if anyone has any questions we can answer here.
Any comments?
No questions. I think you guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you, Mike.
John, I see you got your hand raised.
I have a question and a comment. As for you mentioned in a tournament, red card finishes the player for the tournament. Is that assuming there's no JO at the tournament, or is that for youth specific?
That's the way we do it in the youth tournaments.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do enough of the senior side tournaments to know if that's a Mike, do you happen to know?
Well, you're out two
Well,
matches, and so that's going to be most of the tournaments.
actually, so well, there. I'm going to preface this a little bit. A judicial officer for Northern California. I'm also the DC for Northern California. So I'm the chairman for the committee. So it actually in tournaments, especially sevens, there is that determination of how often you're out, because it isn't automatically two games. If it's two yellows and a red, it doesn't mean you're out for two matches. It could be one. It could be you were out early enough. I mean, there's several options. So
Sure,
that's
there's lots of
they're leading.
options, and you're as a disciplinary officer, you can extend it. That's for sure. But there's not a is it, I mean, there's most tournaments. It's all based upon whatever the tournament manager does. So I mean, I understand it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think at the USA national level, they are trying to standardize this a bit more. So there is a pretty in-depth framework about when you've given the red card, what are the factors, what are the level of dangers, what are the aggravating factors, what are the mitigating factors, and then they'll come out with a decision about length of ban, essentially.
Which
Uh,
can be the season. It can be 6 weeks. It can be whatever.
it could be life if
Yeah.
you go up
I
and so.
I was just getting clarification for the youth. I'm the one that hands it out for Northern California for the men's and women's clubs. And then the second thing is I want to reiterate what you said about all of that information, how important it is, because it is not uncommon. Matter of fact, it is very regular to only get a number and then the the denotation of what law was broken. Nothing extra, no names, nobody talked to the coach. A lot of times people will walk off afterwards. with no contact between referee and coach. And it's just so important from what goes on further that all of that is taken care of so that it makes it easier and smoother all the way through, just to make the process better.
Well, you have tough enough job, John, without having a lack of information. So we'll keep stressing how important it is to get those data points. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you for co-hosting once again on this, and I want to thank everybody who joined us. These are being recorded, and we're going to have them posted shortly, and we're going to be able to use them as ref coaches to point some of our developing referees to the different topics that were covered. And so we'll have an audience today, but we'll have a larger audience over time. So thanks.
Thank you all for participating and joining on, and look forward to seeing you all next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.